So greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking, and I am Debra. And as always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey, from students to retirees and anywhere in between. And today I am very pleased to welcome Ms. Debra James. And Debra earned her first bachelor's degree, a bachelor in sociology, from Howard University in 1984, where she received an Air Force commission as a second lieutenant. She earned her nursing degree, a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, from the Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing in 2003. She became board certified in holistic nursing in 2010 and has practiced holistically for 20 years. Whether caring for cardiac or med-surgical patients at the bedside, hospice patients, patients in physical rehab, long-term care facilities, or in the home, she exemplifies the process of treating the whole person, not just the disease. Debra is the proud owner of Angelic Touch Health and Wellness LLC, her nurse consulting and dementia care advocacy business. She's also the author of the patient advocacy book, 7 Questions You Must Ask When Hospitalized, from a nurse who's been there and done that. Debra is also a contributing author to the #1 selling book, 365 Soulful Messages, The Right Guidance at the Right Time. And this is the 5th and final book in the 365 book series. Welcome, Debra.
Thank you.
So my first question is, I usually wonder why people are nurses. Why are you a nurse, Debra?
I actually came into nursing kicking and screaming. I vowed that I would never become a nurse because the nurses that I knew in my family were very bitter about it.
Ah.
They were very bitter, very jaded. It didn't sound like they really enjoyed what they were doing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I have to say, thanks to my husband, who talked me into going to um, uh, information day at Johns Hopkins. There was a woman there who had worked in advertising for Procter and Gamble for over 20 years. And she was at that time working on her master's in nursing. I thought, well, if she could do it, I should be able to do it too.
And there you have it.
Yeah. And once I got into it and I realized that this is my calling. I had questions for friends and family, and I said, "Why didn't you tell me this before?" And they said, "We knew you wouldn't have heard us anyway." So other people knew it before I knew it.
It's interesting how sometimes people know you better than you know yourself, huh?
Yeah.
But you came to this after having been in the Army, am I correct?
Air Force, actually.
In the Air Force, after having been in the Air Force. So, you're coming from a very kind of structured environment. So another kind of structured environment, but different. So what were the challenges for you, if any?
The challenges for me mainly were believing in myself.
Ah.
It was something that I had always had trouble with, and still to this day I have to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the challenges of having to drive 80 some miles every day to school was no big deal. In the DC area, which is near
Mm-hmm.
where I am, that's normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, the classes, the only thing, probably the biggest thing challenging at school was the fact that one of my instructors, who was also my advisor, basically told me in the beginning that she was going to make sure I didn't pass.
I hear that so often. And you with your Air Force self says, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that so often.
So she
Oh
did her
dear.
best. She did her
Mm,
best.
she did her best, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Her classes were the only classes I got C's in.
Uh-huh. That's
But
okay. So, a question for you though. You said you came to nursing kicking and screaming, and then you met someone and kind of like turned your. I'm sure that was not like 180-degree turn. So when you actually became a nurse and you got to start working as a nurse, was it what you thought it would be?
hmm. To be honest, I didn't have any expectations.
Mm,
I looked at it as, okay, this is something I haven't done before, and how it affects me and how it goes is largely dependent on how I look at things.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, is there anything though about nursing life per se, you think you'd like to see change?
One thing is diversity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That that is still a big challenge. Um,
Yeah.
in 2003, I was actually the first Black nurse on my unit.
What kind of unit was that?
It was a telemetry med surge unit. So it was like a step down cardiac unit.
Wow.
And I think the only reason why I was hired is that the nurse manager at that time, her father had been in the State Department. So she had lived all over the place.
Uh-huh.
And so she was used to dealing with people from different cultures. I think if it had been someone else, I would not have been hired.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, and then just the resistance about holistic care. I mean, some places have it down pat, they really do. But a lot of places, they just don't understand it. And actually, when I was working at the hospital and I got my holistic nursing certification, it wasn't viewed as a real certification. People kept asking me, well, what do you do with that?
What are you gonna support? Right, right, right.
And I said, I take care of my patients completely.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And for anyone who is asking the same question as we're talking here, what is holistic nursing?
Holistic
Briefly.
nursing is a way of caring, it is a standard where you look at the entire individual, everything is interrelated. So, for example, when I would or talk to my patients, I would ask them how they're doing.
Yeah.
And I would really want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask them about their religious preferences, as far as if there was anything that we needed to do to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, True story. I had a patient who was a pagan, and she was very upset when she came up to the floor. And when I was doing my assessment, she said that she was told by the person, excuse me, doing her intake, that uh, paganism was not a real religion. So she put nothing. The woman wrote nothing on her form.
Yeah. Yeah.
I apologized profusely.
Yeah.
And I asked her if she had any, special requirements that she needed to practice her faith. And she said no, but she appreciated that I would acknowledge it.
No, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, everything's related. So if someone has high blood pressure, okay, I'm not looking at just what medications they're taking or not taking. I'm looking at their lifestyle as well. I'm looking at what level of activity they have. I'm looking at what stressors they have in their life, sleep. Do they have people that they can confide in when they need to talk to someone? All of those things are interrelated. It's not just here's the disease, here's what you do to fix it, because
Exactly.
we really don't fix diseases.
We
Uh,
manage.
yeah. And the goal of holistic nursing is to prevent
Yeah.
disease.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you for expanding on that because you know what I asked you to because I'm realizing as you realized that people okay, so you said you mentioned holistic gnosis and people get this blank look. Um
Yeah.
you know, the glaze come down and you know, finally so let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But you've done quite a bit of stuff. So you're a holistic nurse. I see that you say you're a dementia care specialist, right? So what first of all, what made you focus on that? And what does this entail?
Um, my reason for focusing is very personal. I helped my father take care of his mother when
Mm,
she developed Alzheimer's. I helped take care of my father when he developed Alzheimer's. And I am now helping take care of my mother who is living with us now because she
uh-huh.
has. But there were a lot of things that I had to learn very quickly and had to figure out for myself um, when assisting my dad. And after he passed in 2019, for months I kept saying, there should be something out there that talks about this. There should be a book or something that tells people how do you start? What do you do? You get the diagnosis and people are
Yeah,
just, they're in trauma mode.
yeah,
And after a few months, oh yeah, maybe I could do this. It dawned
yeah.
on me. So what I do is focus on practical care for someone with dementia.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had a lot of patients that had dementia. So it's interesting to see the interplay of families. And what I typically see is that families are not ready. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to accept that there's a diagnosis. And actually, I had an interesting conversation with someone at the airport who is from another country. And he said that in his country, people with dementia are treated very badly because there's a lack of understanding that the things that they're doing are not willful things.
yeah, yeah.
And, I was like, wow, but that is an issue. And in different cultures, it's not accepted either.
Hmm.
So I'm taking what I've learned over the years and I've put it into a course, an online course that will be up and running soon.
Okay.
And that's my passion. I want for caregivers to understand that just because there's a diagnosis of dementia doesn't mean that your loved one is lost forever, especially when it's found early. There's a lot of things that you can do to maintain contact and to keep that relationship going. Now, like with my dad, he pretty much knew who everyone was all the way till the end. There were a few times that he didn't recognize my mother, which resulted in some incidences, um, but the thing is, he could not remember my name.
Yeah.
And so he just started calling me baby girl. So
Okay,
I
and
knew,
that worked for both of you.
hey, I knew when he was asking for baby girl, he wanted to talk to me.
Hmm hmm hmm
With his mom, my grandmother, she probably didn't know me for the last 2, 3 years of her life. And at first it bothered me. And then I thought about it and it's like, hey, she likes me. She lets me come visit. She's
hmm
not trying to stab me with a fork, you know? This is a good thing.
This is a
You
good
know,
thing.
she remembered my husband and she remembered that I was with him, but that was about the extent of it. But,
Yeah.
you know, I hate for people to have that fatalistic viewpoint when they hear that diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's very valuable that you're putting out this course because let's face it, it is a hard diagnosis to hear. And if you are not used to, if you're not around this, if this is the first time in your family that this is happening, or the second time, what if it's the first time, you're like, well, what do I do now? And I guess a lot of us, when we hear, things like that, run and hide. Emotionally, mentally, physically, we just shut down and run and hide. We blame the sufferer, all kinds of things. So it's a very valuable thing that doing that. I don't have to tell you that, you know that. You know
But
that.
yeah, I've just seen it over and over and over and over
Hmm
again.
Yeah, yeah,
And I want to teach, families
yeah,
better ways of coping.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because that spreads out. So that one person in the family gets that diagnosis, and family members who have to care for this person don't have the coping mechanisms, the coping skills, and that translates into all kinds of things for these family members. It translates into high blood pressure. It translates into poor eating habits. It translates into not enough sleep and
Yep,
dependency on self-medicating, and the whole family gets all kinds of different diagnoses because of this one diagnosis where people didn't have the skills and didn't feel they had anywhere to turn for help.
absolutely. It's when someone has a diagnosis, it doesn't affect just them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And there is your holistic nursing.
There will be an impact on everyone.
Yes, it does impact on everyone.
And I saw it in my family. I had one aunt and one uncle that just refused to accept that my grandmother had Alzheimer's. They
Hmm
did not go visit her when she was in a facility. Um, and bad things can happen. Someone with dementia can be left on their own,
hmm
and they may think, oh, it's only for 5 minutes. There's a lot that can happen in 5 minutes.
In those, yeah, 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 yeah. Indeed. Ah, my goodness. Anyway, it's something we have to work on because, it's one of those things that I'm sure I know that it's one of those things that we've seen more and more of. And we kind of have to look at why and, what's happening that we're seeing more and more of this. To switch a little bit, you've done a few things. So you're an entrepreneur and you're an author and you're putting out your course and all of this. What would you say is your greatest achievement so far?
That's an interesting question. Only because I don't think about greatest achievement
And that's
because
why I
I'm,
asked the question.
yeah, because I'm always like, okay, I've done this. What's next? What's next? Um, I guess it would be just focusing on the dementia care.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
is something that I am very passionate about. Um, I want people to be able to cope as best they can. And in when they can't, I want them to have the information that they need in order to make safe decisions that are in the best interest of them and the
Everyone.
person with dementia.
Yeah. I ask a question, and I typically ask it most people because, but well, I'm going to speak as nurses, we tend to go along and just do what needs to be done. And I feel like we never stop to give ourselves a little credit for the things that we have done. And that's typically why I ask people that.
Agreed.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a nurse? Because you came to it
First of
kicking and
all,
screaming.
yes. First and foremost, don't do it for the money
Hmm.
because that's not a good motivator.
Hmm.
There are plenty of nurses who jump from job to job to job to job to job in search of the money.
Hmm.
But the other thing I would say is to shadow nurse for a full shift. And not because it was my preference, but I think it should be at night. I should think it should be night shift
Mm.
because that's when you really have to rely on your skills because you don't have everyone in the building to help you with things. And I actually had a friend of the family shadow me one night while they were visiting. And it was one of those, okay, everything's upside down nights.
Hmm.
And she still became a nurse.
I'm glad you picked the night shift for that because people have this misconception that, well, nothing's really happening at night. Everybody's sleeping. Far from the truth. Nothing
When
could be
I,
further from the truth.
yeah, when I first started working at the hospital, we had probably about 25, maybe 28 patients. And on night shift, we only had three nurses.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, I came off of orientation, and the first night I had 10 patients.
Yeah. Yeah. And that means that you are going all night and then some.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's
So, that's why I say you're right. People have a misperception that, oh, well, night shift, there's nothing going on. Everybody's asleep. It's like, that's what you think. All the people with issues that were allowed to sleep all day, guess what? They're up all night.
Typically when people say that, I typically ask them, have you ever been sick? And how has the night been for you when you're sick? Because that's when you really all your anxieties come into play and all of that kind of thing. So yeah.
I'll have to remember that.
So moving on a little from this, you're an author. And this book of yours, 7 questions you must ask. Seven. Seven. Run them down for me. Which ones are they?
Oh, I knew you'd put me on the spot for that.
Oh no, 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 no. The intention is not to put you on the spot. Tell me why you wrote the book.
I wrote the book because I myself had had some bad experiences in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And also dealing with family members. There were certain things that always came up, certain issues. So in the book, I talk about having a notebook so
Mm-hmm.
that you can write everything down. It's hard to remember everything when you've got 50 dozen people going, coming to you.
Yeah.
Um, get a business card of whatever care provider comes in there, or at least get their name in the department they work for,
Mm-hmm.
because people come in and out, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, who's that? I don't know. You need to know who's caring for your loved one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You also need to advocate for them. If you see something that's wrong, or they tell you something that's wrong, don't just say, oh, well, that's the way it is. No, you can't do that, because things get missed,
Yeah.
symptoms get ignored. And a lot of that has to do with just the patient's ability to convey that.
Yeah.
They, for the most part, they don't speak doctor.
There you go.
So when they're saying, okay, when I go to the bathroom, I get a little fluttering, and they're 80 years old, that can be interpreted as, oh, okay,
Alrighty.
just a little excitable. But the flip side of that is that it could be something as serious as AFib,
Mm-hmm.
atrial fibrillation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to key in on those things. You also need to know what medications your family member is taking, or your friend, and find out if those medications are being given. If not, why? If new medications have been added, if generic versions of medications are being used.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times with generic medications, it's not the actual medication that's different, it's the fillers.
The filler. Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, lactose is a big filler for a lot of medications.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for people with lactose intolerance, that's an issue. So those are the types of things I talk about in the book.
Excellent. 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 I am so pleased that you talk about symptoms and being, specific and explicit about the symptoms of being able to. I remember some time ago I was looking at a program. I'm not sure which one it was, but it's one of these medical kind of dramas, right? And so this person is in the emergency room, and she's saying to the doctor that I feel dizzy. I think she fell over or something. But anyway, she said she was dizzy, and he asked her, which struck me as really great. He asked her, "What do you mean by dizzy?" And she goes, "Don't you know what dizzy means?" He says, "I know what dizzy is, but what does dizzy mean to you? When you tell me you're dizzy, what do you mean?" It
Right.
took, I think, probably a whole 8 hours, in the drama that unfolded, for her to be able to understand that dizzy is not just dizzy, and he was not going to give her a diagnosis or have her admitted or anything or treat her until she could articulate what she meant by being dizzy. So that was for me actually a big lesson. Just because someone uses a term that is common and easily used by all of us does not really mean that we all understand the same thing by that term. So that was a big lesson for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Deborah, I am noticing, or I have noticed, that I can recognize nurses without ever being told that they're nurses. And so I've been asking nurses, what for you is the most recognizable quality of a nurse? If you can say that in one word, what would that word be?
Compassion.
Compassion. Okay, compassion. That comes up a lot. That comes up a lot. And when it comes up, um, I usually say to people that we have to remember that that compassion also extends to us because we're very good at being compassionate when it comes to others, but to ourselves, we beat ourselves with all kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress on that.
I think we all are, my dear. And it's the reason that I bring it up because I think we all are. We tend to not be as willing to give ourselves that grace and compassion as we are for others. Yeah. So one of the things that also we're hearing a lot of is burnout, is dis-ease. It's, people just throwing up their hands and saying, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And when I talk to people, a lot of the reasons that they give have to do with external things, have to do with staff shortages and, all of that kind of thing. And those things are true, not to trivialize those things at all. They're true. But I believe that a lot of it, more than we're willing to admit, has to do with our lack of caring for ourselves. So I'm
Absolutely.
asking people, what does self-care mean to you?
The best way I can explain it is, how when you're on an airplane and they're going through all the little safety stuff and they say, when the oxygen drops down, put your mask on before you put on the other
Yeah.
person's mask.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
I, like I said, I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
But but I've gotten better about putting my mask on first
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before I put on someone else's mask.
Yeah.
Because you really, if you know, and I have to remind myself that if I go down, how many people is that going to affect?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
Exactly.
taking care of myself. I'm
Yeah.
not taking care of all the people that I'm caring for.
Yeah. Exactly. 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 And you say that you're a work in progress. I think we all are, but more than that is that one of the reasons that we all are, and one of the reasons we have to talk about it, and one of the reasons I bring it up is that it has been ingrained in us. We have to really unlearn what we have learned because it has been ingrained in us. It has been taught to us. And as women, it's a female dominated profession still. As women, it is intrinsically what we do. We put people ahead of ourselves. And then we become nurses where we are literally educated to put people ahead of ourselves.
Mhm.
Nowhere does it mention taking care of you. Nowhere. And so we end up having to unlearn or to relearn how to actually take care of people by taking care of us.
That is absolutely true. Um, it's becoming more insightful in terms of significance and
Yeah.
importance than it used to be, but there's
Yeah.
still a long way to go.
Yeah. There is a
I
long
mean,
way to go.
how many nurses do you know that go all shift without eating? How many
And I put
nurses do
up
you
two
know?
because one's for eating and one's for the bathroom.
Well, that's what I was going to say next. How many nurses do you know that might, pee once during that 12 hours?
Mhm, mhm. Exactly. Exactly. And we bring that up because as you say the P1, but if that were your patient, that would be unacceptable to you.
Exactly. You're not going to be going the whole time and not pee
Yeah.
or not eat. I
Or
mean,
not eat.
your body needs fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we've got to learn to be a little more mindful of the way we treat ourselves, you know. We need to be a little bit more. So, is there any gem you would like to leave us with?
Hmm. Again, going back to dementia care,
Mm-hmm.
probably the biggest thing that people have trouble with is recognizing that everyone's dementia care journey is different. Everyone's dementia journey is different. Um, yeah, okay, there are classic symptoms and things that will happen, but you can't expect one person with dementia to respond and react the same way as another. And my parents are a perfect example.
Mm.
My father retained his concept of logic. So there were times when we had to really explain something to him, break it down. But once we did that, he was okay. My mother is still in denial. And that whole logic thing does not work with her.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
So I've had to find other ways to get the point across. And then I've also had to realize that, okay, there's some things just not going to happen. So
Yeah.
every dementia journey is different. So you can't go into it thinking that because something worked for one person, that it's going to work for you in your situation.
Exactly. 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 And we're going to look out for your course, Deborah.
Yes, it's the Practical Dementia Care Action Guide course.
Okay.
It's online, 6 modules. So the intent is for someone to go through one module a week, but you get all 6 at the same time so that if you need more time to digest information, you can take it.
There you go. There you go. Thank you so much for that.
You're
And
very
thank you
welcome.
for doing this. Thank you for doing this. I truly appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.